Hi there, and welcome to the Introducing Asexuality and Aromance virtual workshop. My name is Becca Miller. I'm a licensed mental health counselor who works right here at CAPS, and I also identify as part of the ACE community. Today, you might be wondering, why is she dressed like that? Today is Halloween on the day of this recording, so I'm dressed in my Sarah Sanderson Halloween costume. So hopefully that will make an added fun element to our presentation today. You can find me right here at CAPS, most days in person, 3 days out of the week, typically Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and then I'm usually working from home on Thursdays and Fridays. But you can call the front desk and ask to speak to me. If you have any questions, they'll forward you to my desk. You can leave me a voicemail, let me know when you're free so I can try to get back to you in a window that works for you. And you can ask me any questions that you might have after the workshop. So we're going to start with a cute YouTube video that I found that kind of introduces asexuality.
Hey Psych2Goers, welcome back to another video. First of all, we'd like to thank you all for the support that you've given us. Psych2Go's mission is to make psychology and mental health more accessible to everyone, and you definitely help us do that, so thank you. Now, back to the video. Are you struggling with your sexual identity? Do you think you may be asexual? Trying to figure out what your sexual orientation may be, especially when you're growing up, can be a daunting and frustrating experience. You may feel uncertain, afraid, and even overwhelmed when you approach the subject or read up on the topic. So to help you out, here are 6 signs on what it means to be asexual. Before we begin, we would like to note that everyone expresses their sexual orientation differently. Some may identify with all or some of the signs we mention. Others may relate to a few or none that we've listed. Our list is not definitive, but are only some of the key aspects we've chosen. Number 1, the lack of sexual attraction. Are your romantic relationships based on sexual attraction? Asexuality refers to a lack of or low level of sexual attraction to others. So instead of sexual attraction, asexuals are more likely to experience other forms of attraction, like platonic, romantic, and so on. More on that later. However, some asexuals do experience sexual attraction sometimes. Demisexual, for example, is a type of asexuality. If you'd like to know more about demisexuality, you can check out the video we've made on that topic too. Number 2, asexuals could crave relationships, just without the sexual element. While some asexuals don't experience any sexual attraction, that doesn't mean they can't experience other forms of attraction, which include romantic attraction, the desire to have a romantic relationship with someone; aesthetic attraction, the attraction towards someone based on how they look; sensual or physical attraction, the desire to touch, hold, or cuddle someone; platonic attraction, the desire to be friends with someone; and emotional attraction, the desire to have an emotional connection with someone. Number 3, they get over crushes easily. Are your crushes short-lived? Sometimes asexuals may put an end to their relationships with another person when the relationship becomes too intimate. They value more romantic or physical attractions over sexual attraction. So if these values don't align or agree with their crush's values, then they're likely to let go early on in the relationship. Number 4, not having any celebrity crushes. Speaking of crushes, have you ever had a celebrity crush ever in your life? If you haven't, that's totally okay. In fact, a lot of us have aesthetic attractions towards celebrities based on how they present themselves, whether on the red carpet or in movies and TV. So while asexuals may have a preference to which celebrity they like or admire, it's unlikely that their preference is based on a sexual attraction to them. Number 5, some asexuals may only experience sexual attraction in certain circumstances. Asexuality has a wide spectrum. Some may only experience sexual attraction in very limited circumstances, while some may experience none at all. For example, people who are demisexual, which falls under the asexual umbrella, experience sexual attraction only when they have a deep connection to a person. This means they might only feel sexually attracted to people they have deep romantic relationships with. And number 6, sex depends. Is sex a must for your relationships? Most asexuals often don't need sex to satisfy themselves over the course of their lifetime. They may feel that there's an abundance of activities and events waiting for them to enjoy. other than focusing on intimate relationships. However, some may want sex due to hopes of conceiving children, to satisfy their libido, or to feel physically close with their partner. Did this video help you learn more about asexuality? Let us know in the comments below.
So that is a cute video introduction to some of the content today, which is about asexuality. So like the video said, it's either a complete or partial lack of sexual attraction, or partial lack of desire for sexual relationships. So someone who is asexual, we might hear that they're called ace, or asexual. If you are not asexual and you experience sexual attraction and desire for sexual relationships, you're called allosexual. So the A prefix means without, allo means with, and you'll find that throughout this presentation, there's a couple of different prefixes that are used that are pretty interchangeable for other words that we might see in the presentation. So asexuality, lack or partial lack of sexual attraction or desire for sexual relationships, allosexual for people who do desire sexual relationships and experience that sexual attraction. When I'm trying to describe asexuality to other people, I often will say, you might feel hungry. So people with ace identities may still experience libido, like the video said, like that desire for a sexual relationship. So let's say, again, you're hungry. So you go to the fridge and you open the door and then you say, none of these things look good. I don't think any of things are something I want to eat. And then you close the door. You might even come back later and be like, I'm hungry. Let me pick something out. But you just kind of lack the compass to point you at what to choose for your meal. The same thing applies with asexuality, where again, the person might experience libido or that desire or hunger, but they lack that compass to point that attraction or desire or to engage in sex at anyone in particular. So there's a couple of different versions of asexuality that we look at called sex favorability. So if someone is sex favorable, that means that they are sex positive, that they're willing to engage with a sexual partner, they're open to finding compromise, and they might even enjoy the physical or emotional parts of having sex, or might just prefer to give pleasure rather than to receive it. This is kind of the opposite of someone who might be sex repulsed. And typically I find when we think of asexuality, people assume that everyone who is under the ace umbrella is sex repulsed, where they have a distress or visceral reaction to like, oh, having sex or not willing to compromise with a partner, or when other people might talk about sex nearby, it might make them feel kind of icky. Other people might be sex indifferent, which is kind of in the middle, where they don't really think about it, but they're not necessarily opposed. They could be compromising on a couple of things on an occasional basis. You might not necessarily enjoy it as much in a physical or emotional way, but you might be willing to be part of the experience anyway, because you might enjoy pieces of it, but maybe it's not super intimate for you. But it also doesn't cause you distress to think about it or talk about it or broach that with your partner. And I also promised that we would talk a little bit about a romance today, so we're going to watch this cutie little infographic video about a romance.
Hey Psych2Goers, welcome back to another video. Did you know that there are several types of attraction? These types include sexual attraction and romantic attraction, which makes one desire romantic contact or interaction with another individual, emotional attraction, aesthetic attraction, and so on. So with that said, have you ever been attracted to someone romantically? Those who haven't are defined as aromantic. You may be thinking, well, isn't aromantic just another word for asexual? They're actually two different things. Those who are asexual don't experience sexual attraction, while someone who is aromantic doesn't experience romantic attraction, but can still experience sexual attraction. You can be both aromantic and asexual, or one or the other. It's also important to know aromanticism exists on a spectrum, so you may feel romantic attraction in some cases under a certain circumstance. So how do you know if you are aromantic? Here are 6 signs to help you find out. Number 1, you've never had a crush. Have you ever had a crush? In high school, it's all anyone can ever seem to talk about, but you just didn't seem to get it. Sure, you could admire someone and want to get closer to them as a friend, but romantically, the desire just wasn't there. 2, you don't find yourself romantically attracted to others. You may have tried out a romantic relationship, but it never really clicked with you. You went out on dates, but you have no idea what those butterflies in your stomach everyone speaks of is all about. The attraction to having a romantic evening with flowers and romantic notions simply was often not there. Number 3, you've experienced platonic love, but don't desire romantic love. You love your family, you love your friends, but falling in love isn't something you've often experienced. Yes, you may eventually love your sexual partner, as you may still experience sexual attraction, but the love you've experienced isn't the cuddly romantic affection others are expecting. Number 4, you prefer being single. Do you care if you have a partner or not? For aromantics, it may simply just not be on their mind as often as others. In fact, they often prefer being single. Now, some aromantics still may want a partner for different reasons, such as having children or living with a best friend who understands them on a deeper level. But being single often doesn't faze them. Number 5, you may have felt sexual attraction, but don't feel romantic emotions along with it. Have you been sexually attracted to someone but often don't feel the romantic emotions along with it? Aromantics can feel sexual attraction, but that spark of romance is more often not there. They just don't find themselves into the whole lovey-doveyness. Lovey-doveyness? Is that a word? Oh well. And number 6, you're okay with never having been in love. Have you ever been in love? No? Are you okay with that? Yep, you may just be. The thing is, because of all of the love around us, many aromantics may think they should want to find love. But at the end of the day, they simply don't mind the fact that they've never fallen in love. The internal desire may simply not be there, and they're completely happy and okay with that. Does this sound like you? Well, if you relate to these signs, you may very well be aromantic. Which signs did you relate to the most? Did you know about aromanticism before this video? Let us know in the comments. And hey,
So, a romance is a complete or partial lack of romantic attraction. So, rather than sexual attraction. And in the same idea, someone who is alloromantic is a term used for people who do experience romantic attraction and a desire for romantic relationships. So it has those a and allo prefixes again, which means with and without. Same idea where they might desire a romantic relationship, they might have the hunger for it, but they lack the compass or the kind of inspiration when they get to the fridge to pick out the specific thing that they might want. So here's a little bit of some do's and don'ts about asexuality. So many people who are ace and or aro do have sex and engage in relationships for a variety of reasons, whether it's connection, desire to have children, the desire to satisfy their libido, whatever it might be. And also, again, asexuality is a spectrum. So some people may not be sex repulsed or relationship repulsed. They might be sex favorable or relationship favorable and not have the same kind of stereotypical like bleh feelings we think of when we think of asexuality and a romance when they're engaging in a relationship. And it's also a spectrum where there's many identities underneath it. So we heard a little bit about demisexual, demi-romantic, where it takes some time to build up those attraction feelings, but they can experience them. And so maybe that person is under a different label under the umbrella. People who are ace and aro do experience love. They experience platonic love for their friends, their families, their partners, their um, pets, their friends, whatever it might be. And they do lead full and happy lives. Being in a relationship is not the only thing that can make someone feel like they are living the best version of their life. Of course, we're social creatures, but many ace and aro people have wonderful, large friends and family groups that help them feel satisfied and connected to people. And there is also the ability to allow for differences in your affectional and sexual orientation. So we call that the split attraction model, where I personally identify as asexual and biromantic, which means I am attracted to basically men, women, kind of whoever romantically, and then in sexuality wise, I'm on the ace spectrum. So I still experience romantic attraction, but I don't have that sexual attraction piece. Someone might be bisexual and aromantic. Like they might have sexual attraction for two or more genders, but then they don't have the romantic attraction piece. Someone may be ace and aro. Someone might be, bisexual, biromantic, whatever it might be, and hold two identities at the same time within the split attraction model. So people who are ace and aro don't experience either romantic attraction if you're aro or sexual attraction if you're ace. And a metanormativity is one of my favorite big science words that basically means the belief that someone is more fulfilled by being in a romantic, long-term, exclusive, coupled relationship. We're learning more and more that there are so many different kinds of relationship structures that can make people happy, whether it's polyamory, a queer platonic relationship, being single, there's lots of things that can fulfill someone, including being just a friend, a family member, or having a really cool career that they like to follow. And asexuality and aromance is not a choice. It is just who somebody is. Kind of born this way, or maybe developed into this through life experiences. There is no definition that says why someone is ace or aro, but it's just part of their identity, like any other label that one might assign to themselves. So again, I mentioned that there would be a couple of common prefixes that we could go over that we can apply to both romance and sexuality. So one of the more common ones that I see is bellis romantic or bellis sexual. And a bellis sexual or a bellis romantic have interest in certain aspects of the relationship or the aesthetic of what that looks like to be with somebody else, but they still lack that desire and attraction. So they might really crave being in a romantic relationship or having a sexual relationship and think it's so cool that other people hold hands or get flowers bought for them or get to cuddle. But in practice, they still lack that compass or really desire to actually go out and find that peace. And the same kind of idea with cupio-romantic or cupio-sexual. Then we also have gray sexual, where they experience less attraction than an allosexual person, but maybe a little more than an asexual person does. Reciprosexual or just reciprocal romantic can kind of mean that only experiences attraction once they know the other person really well, and knows that the other person does as experience that attraction for them as well. Agosexuals and agoromantics can experience fantasies and experience desire for those kinds of relationships outside of themselves. Maybe they're really good at writing books about romance or whatever, so they can fantasize about it, but in practice, doing it themselves is like, no, I don't really want that. And there is even an umbrella term for cade sexual, like cade romantic, who was once allosexual, but due to trauma or some sort of life event, they're now on the ace or aro spectrum. A lot of times people ask me, how do I tell if I'm on the ace or aro spectrum? How do I know if I experience attraction, if I don't really know what the lack of attraction feels like or what attraction feels like? This was a cool video I found that kind of explains the science behind attraction, and then we'll talk about a couple of the different kinds of attractions one might experience.
We like to think of romantic feelings as spontaneous and indescribable things that come from the heart. But it's actually your brain running a complex series of calculations within a matter of seconds that's responsible for determining attraction. Doesn't sound quite as poetic, does it? But just because the calculations are happening in your brain doesn't mean those warm, fuzzy feelings are all in your head. In fact, all 5 of your senses play a role, each able to vote for or veto a budding attraction. The eyes are the first components in attraction. Many visual beauty standards vary between cultures and eras, and signs of youth, fertility, and good health, such as long, lustrous hair or smooth, scar-free skin, are almost always in demand because they're associated with reproductive fitness. And when the eyes spot something they like, our instinct is to move closer so the other senses can investigate. The nose's contribution to romance is more than noticing perfume or cologne. It's able to pick up on natural chemical signals known as pheromones. These not only convey important physical or genetic information about their source, but are able to activate a physiological or behavioral response in the recipient. In one study, a group of women at different points in their ovulation cycles wore the same t-shirts for 3 nights. After male volunteers were randomly assigned to smell either one of the worn shirts or a new unworn one, saliva samples showed an increase in testosterone in those who had smelled a shirt worn by an ovulating woman. Such a testosterone boost may give a man the nudge to pursue a woman he might not have otherwise noticed. A woman's nose is particularly attuned to MHC molecules, which are used to fight disease. In this case, opposites attract. When a study asked women to smell t-shirts that had been worn by different men, they preferred the odors of those whose MHC molecules differed from theirs. This makes sense. Genes that result in a greater variety of immunities may give offspring a major survival advantage. Our ears also determine attraction. Men prefer females with high-pitched, breathy voices and wide formant spacing, correlated with smaller body size, while women prefer low-pitched voices with a narrow formant spacing that suggest a larger body size. And not surprisingly, touch turns out to be crucial for romance. In this experiment, not realizing the study had begun, participants were asked to briefly hold the coffee, either hot or iced. Later, the participants read a story about a hypothetical person and were asked to rate their personality. Those who had held the hot cup of coffee perceived the person in the story as happier, more social, more generous, and better natured than those who had held the cup of iced coffee, who rated the person as cold, stoic, and unaffectionate. If a potential mate has managed to pass all these tests, there is still one more, the infamous first kiss, a rich and complex exchange of tactile and chemical cues, such as the smell of one's breath and the taste of their mouth. This magical moment is so critical that a majority of men and women have reported losing their attraction to someone after a bad first kiss. Once attraction is confirmed, your bloodstream is flooded with norepinephrine, activating your fight or flight system. Your heart beats faster, your pupils dilate, and your body releases glucose for additional energy, not because you're in danger, but because your body is telling you that something important is happening. To help you focus, norepinephrine creates a sort of tunnel vision, blocking out surrounding distractions, possibly even warping your sense of time and enhancing your memory. This might explain why people never forget their first kiss. The idea of so much of our attraction being influenced by chemicals and evolutionary biology may seem cold and scientific rather than romantic, but the next time you see someone you like, try to appreciate how your entire body is playing matchmaker to decide if that beautiful stranger is right for you.
So that video kind of sheds the light on a lot of attraction is chemical. It's just how your body is reacting to the smells, the sights, the sounds that the other person is creating just innately from their genetics and how they look at all of those things. Um, it's not something that we can necessarily trigger ourselves, and you're just listening to your body cues of like, am I getting a little warmer? Is my heart pounding? Do I have those butterflies in my stomach? Do I have that tunnel vision on this person? Are they on my mind a lot? And again, here are some of those kinds of attraction that we talked about a little bit before, but re-highlighting here. Emotional attraction, the ability to be emotionally present with another person and desire to be sharing your deep and interpersonal world with them. Altruist attraction is a kind of emotional attraction where you really want to caretake for someone. We usually have that for like children or pets. We can have platonic attraction where it's like I just like spending time with you, and more of that passion and love, which we usually associate more with that romantic attraction. Um, and there are a lot of different things under romantic attraction as well, including all of the split attraction model identities like biromantic, heteromantic, homoromantic, polyromantic, panromantic. Um, and also things like having a crush on someone where you're like, "Ooh, I like them, but I'm not really sure where this is going to go yet." And your body's having all those physiological reactions to the attraction. Sexual attraction, of course, subjective sexual and objective sexual, kind of like objective physical and subjective physical is an interesting concept where subjective sexual and subjective physical is something that happens when you are physically or sexually attracted to someone just because no one else is. You're like, this person is unique and different. No one's responding them to this way, so I like that. And objective sexual and objective physical can be tied more to everyone else likes this person, so I also like this person. And someone who's really famous right now, like Timothy Chalamet or something like that. People think he's attractive, and a lot of your friends might think he's attractive. So then you're like, okay, yes, this person is attractive. I am physically or sexually attracted to them. And then aesthetic attraction is usually what people who are on the ACE or ARO spectrum are describing to me that they feel for other people that have some kind of conflicted of like, do I experience attraction? Because aesthetic attraction is more of that you're at a museum and you see a art piece on the wall and you're like, that's nice. And then you walk away. You don't need to take it home. You don't need to marry it. You don't need to go on a date with it. It's just like, I can appreciate the beauty of this thing. And there's also lots and lots of kinds of intimacy that one could participate in with their partner, trying to move out of the way so you can see the whole thing. But people are like, how can people who are ace or arrow have completely satisfying relationships with their partners? They participate in all of these other aspects of the relationship, sharing hobbies and having fun, working through crisis together, responding to really hard times in their life, sharing deep and personal inner worlds, again, with that emotional piece, sharing thoughts and opinions and feeling like they can trust one another, creating things together like a bucket list or a plan for your future. Communicating with one another, appreciating the sunset. And it makes me always wonder when people ask me questions like that, like, what do you do in your relationship outside of just like hold hands or have sex? You do all kinds of other stuff, like enjoy each other's company and participate in hobbies and talk about the things that you enjoy and experience the beautiful world together. This is a cool tool that sometimes I use in therapy to help people kind of parse through their different attractions. It highlights that split attraction model where we see the physical attraction and emotional attraction are on different levels. I don't super love the gender identity or gender expression columns just because it is super binary with female, male, other genders or feminine, masculine, other. If you're gender fluid, you're non-binary, you might not fall on a scale. You might be kind of all of it and you might be kind of none of it or whatever it might be. But specifically with the physical and emotional attraction, they put both right at the heart because it's the two halves of the same whole of your different kinds of attraction you might experience for people. And you can kind of put on the line of like, how attracted am I to women versus men versus other gender presentations to see it sort of mapped out for you. It's called the gender unicorn. If you look up gender unicorn, you can find this. There's also genderbread man, which is like gender unicorn, but it's like a gingerbread kind of looking thing. Here are some common frequently asked questions that I get about ace and arrow identities. I know someone who is ace, but they have sex. How is that possible? Like I said at the beginning, a lot of ace people are not sex repulsed. A lot of others are, but some might be sex indifferent or even sex favorable, which means they might be participating in it for either their own desire for closeness to their partner, or enjoyment, whatever it might be, just wanting to feel close. How can you have a relationship without sex? Like we highlighted, there are lots of different other forms of intimacy, and you love lots of people that you don't have sex with. So people like your friends, your family members, pets, children in your life, like nieces and nephews, and you spend time with them and you share your inner world, you have fun, you look at beautiful things, and that helps you feel intimate and close. How do you know, or aren't you too young to know that you are ace or aro? I don't think there is an age where you're too young to start kind of exploring your sexuality, your gender, any kind of identity or place in society. And you can go with whatever label fits you at the time. Just because you hold an ace identity right now doesn't mean it will always fit. Or just because you hold an aloe identity right now doesn't mean it will always fit. It's something that can be fluid, it can change, and it's only based on the information that you have at that time. So whatever you feel in this moment is 100% valid. And as you gain more information, it might change that identity. That is also 100% valid. Typically, people experience their first attraction between the ages of 11 and 20. So sometimes people are like, oh, you're just too young. You have to meet the right person. And then it will all work out for you. But typically, in that window of 11 to 20, you'll have your first crush. Could this be caused by hormone imbalance? Typically, we see with a hormonal imbalance that it causes a cluster of symptoms like the things listed there, like hair loss, fatigue, weight gain, all kinds of other things, and a decrease in libido, which again is that desire or drive rather than attraction. And asexuality and aromance are about attraction, not desire or libido. So the ace identity and aro identity doesn't say that it can't be caused by a hormonal imbalance. It just says that you lack that desire or attraction. So someone with a hormonal imbalance can identify as ace and aro. However, a lot of other people, most other people, I would say, don't have a hormonal condition that is causing their ace or aro identity. It's just something that's innately part of who they are. What if they just haven't met the right person yet? Typically, attraction isn't tied to meeting your soulmate. Like people will have crushes on people in middle school and high school and not date that person, never end up with them. It doesn't take a perfect person to make you experience attraction. Usually we experience it before the one. Could it be caused by trauma? Same thing. It could be. There is even one of those identities that says, I think it's asexual, romantic, that is about having experienced trauma. It doesn't rule it out, but it's not the only reason one can identify as ace and aro. There is not a requirement for how that identity came about. It's just about your experience. And then what is the difference between attraction versus arousal? And arousal is the body changes that you experience, where you might experience physical changes, temperature changes, all of those things kind of explained in that attraction video. Um, and it also explains that sexual attraction is the urges targeted at a specific individual. Again, sort of the difference between hunger and craving a specific food. You might be hungry and notice those physical cues, but then you don't really have a preference on what you're eating, and then might even just be like, meh, there's nothing in the fridge for me. If you are interested in learning more, of course, like I said, you can call the front desk and ask to speak to Becca. They'll forward you to my voicemail, and I can help you identify what resources might be best for you. You could come do an intake assessment here at CAPS and get matched with a therapist. You can request me in particular if I have availability, where we can explore ace and aro identities together and how to broach what a relationship would look like for you, if that's something you desire. Maybe you would like no relationship, and how can we navigate maybe relationships with family and friends when they might question our identity? What are our media representation like, books that we can read, coming out, and maybe even grief work sometimes, where we kind of sit in a space of, I really wish I was aloe, or sometimes people will come in and say, I wish I was normal, which always breaks my heart because it is a normal thing. It might not be super common, but so much more common now. I think before we only heard that like 2% of people identified as ace or aro, but I really do think it's just because they don't have the words for their experience. They're not comfortable talking about these things to get the information about what their identity might be. I also run our Q support group here at CAPS, and we do highlight ace and aro identities. So definitely, if you're interested, come let your counselor know or your intake clinician know that you would like to join Q support. They'll set you up with me to do a group screening, and we can talk about how to incorporate whatever your goals are into the group setting. Here is my resource list. AVEN, the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network, is awesome. AUREA is the Aromantic Spectrum Union for Recognition, Education, and Advocacy, also awesome. There's some great books out there. about asexuality and a romance. I love the Trevor Project. They have all kinds of information about LGBT identities. P-Flag is another great one as well. But definitely explore any of these resources. That's where I got a lot of my content, and it might answer any lingering questions you might have. Of course, if you'd like to come to CAPS, we're open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and we have walk-ins during that window as well. You can call our front desk and speak to someone over the phone or via video chat, or walk in to the main campus office if you're able. After hours, you can call our front desk and press 5 to be connected to a therapist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Follow us on social media for more information about workshops, our pause events where we bring therapy dogs to CAPS, and different informations about campus closures and things like that. We're located right next to the health center on the main campus. It's building 27. It says counseling really big on the side as it says in the picture. We offer all kinds of services. I highlighted some of our brief individual counseling where you get some 4 to 6 sessions in the academic year to navigate some of these goals and identify other resources, group therapy, if you would like a one-time session and kind of exploring some brief goals or just trying out therapy, you can explore single sessions. Or again, our crisis resources of walking in or calling after hours. You also have access to Tao and Together All, where Tao is kind of like a mental health YouTube or web courses where you can self-help your way through some stuff or in conjunction with the work you're doing here at CAPS. Together All is online anonymous peer support where you can post, hey, I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and then other people can post, oh my gosh, me too, here's how I handled that, and all of those good things. If you need to schedule an intake, you can just go to our main website and go to the appointments and forums page and scroll down to where it says schedule intake. There will be a couple of forms for you to fill out, and then you can pick your appointment time, if either it's in person or telehealth. Thank you so much for joining me today on our workshop. If you have any other questions, I'm so excited to consult with you all about these identities, and I appreciate you watching. Bye for now.